Hey everybody, Attorney Walter Hnot. We are going live. This is the part of the show where basically we answer questions for those people who call in to the 407-279-1754 phone number. Simple setup. We're going to go ahead and have a phone right here. Basically, that phone will have a caller that calls in. They'll go on to speakerphone. They'll pop right into this microphone, which is right here. And then, I guess we lost our first caller. And then from there, we'll go ahead and get set up to answer the first question. Now, the way this works, it's really, really simple, is you get 5 to 7 minutes. You have to know ahead of time what your legal question is. You can't go into story mode, and you have to use a fake name throughout this process. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and I'm going to put the phone number into the call section right here. We're going to take that first call right here. Hi, this is Attorney Walter Hnot. We are live on YouTube. Remember to go ahead and mute the phone number or mute the computer on your end. Use a fake name throughout this process. Would you like me to answer a specific question, or would you like me to run hearing questions with you? Go ahead.
Just a specific, but
Perfect, sir. How can I help you?
I'm on disability and I'm planning on having my house paid off within the next 2 years. Can they use that as an asset to take away my disability?
No. Car, a house, you're allowed to have one of each of those without it really counting against you in any way. I mean, that's one of the weird things about disability, is that you could literally own the Taj Mahal. I mean, they would question some of the artwork and things like that in it, but you could own the Taj Mahal and have that count as your one house asset. So no, you're allowed to pay that sucker off. It's not going to hurt you. You know, you'll be fine.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. You have a wonderful day. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys, we're going to go to the next call, and then let's sprinkle some magic phone dust at the phone, see if it rings. It rang. Here we go. Hi, this is Attorney Walter Hnot. We are live on YouTube right now. Remember to use a fake name throughout this process. Make sure you go ahead and mute the computer on your side. And then also remember to use your legal question at the beginning of this. How can I help you? And would you like me to answer a specific legal question, or would you like me to run hearing questions with you? Go ahead.
I just have a question for you. I have a case in federal court.
Mm-hmm.
I just won my new case. Is there a way to connect those two cases together to try to win that federal court case?
Yeah, but here's the kicker and what comes into issue. So when you win the new case, you have to look at why they actually won it. So you've got to get a copy of your DDE report. You're going to go ahead and submit the win to federal court as, example of why you won it, but you have to make sure they weren't relying on evidence that came after the period of your old claim. And here's the reason why. Your old claim, from the initial filing up to the point in which the ALJ basically made a decision on it, they might have looked at this thing again and said, okay, well, he wasn't disabled then, but we have this new evidence and we think he's disabled now. When they do that, that would show evidence that basically they took and found some piece of medical evidence, vocational evidence, penal evidence, law enforcement evidence, whatever, to say, okay, at this moment, we believe after his ALJ hearing, the prior one you had, that he became disabled. So you have to go look at the DDE report, which is the report that the DDS rep created, to show exactly what evidence they relied on for your approval. Now, what kind of approval did you receive? Did you get a listing level, a grid out? Did you get a vocational allowance? What happened?
I haven't really. I just found out today that I got approved. But basically, there's a lot of issues with that old case. The ALJ hearing, my lawyer was horrible. That's one of the issues I'm bringing up. And hopefully I can win based on a number of different things, because when the VE testified and said the listed jobs, the lawyer didn't even cross-examine. One of the jobs he listed was a dresser,
mm-hmm.
and that's known to be one of those jobs that goes back to 1977, which is 3 years before I was born.
Right. Well, I mean, look, if you're all right, so what arguments did you argue when you sent this thing up to federal court? Well, you went to appeals council, then you went to, federal district court. What were the arguments that you used in the brief to support that the district court should go ahead and either do a finding or a remand?
I'm doing it myself. So I did during the pandemic. I couldn't get an MRI because there were backlogs after they listed the restrictions. I listed that my lawyer didn't cross-examine the VE. She didn't do hardly anything. She didn't mention anything in the record. They didn't get the updated medical records. She didn't cross-examine the BE, and basically she didn't do anything. I mean, I could have did it better myself, honestly, because I didn't have any preparation. It's one of those big firms that's on TV and stuff.
Yep.
And they, I couldn't find a local attorney at the time. A lot of them had they had a lot of high caseloads and stuff. But I'm trying to prove that based on what I said in this case was the same thing that I was saying in the old case.
Okay.
The MRI I had was after the ALJ hearing, but I have X-rays of my knees going back to 2018 that show I have arthritis and my knees have no cartilage left, and I need total knee replacements. I'm 43 years old, so I'm hoping that I can win on that basis. I have probably like 10 different issues that I brought up, and basically the government said that I should have raised those issues during the hearing, but I wasn't aware that the lawyer didn't get, or the law firm didn't get the medical records, because when I tried to do something myself, they asked me to let them do it. So I stepped back. I said, okay, I'm relying on you guys to do, get all this stuff. And then the CEs they sent me to, the orthopedic doctor they sent me to, I talked to him for maybe 10 minutes. He said in his report he did all these tests, and he didn't do any straight leg tests or anything. And basically he said because I was sitting for 15 minutes that I could do a sit-down job or driving job. I have sleep apnea and I have a whole bunch of other issues that a driving job wouldn't be good. So,
all right. So here's what I would say. Yeah, because remember, look, a lot of these arguments are not traditional arguments used for appeals counsel or basically going up to district court. So, a lot of these are just like, hey, she didn't do her job because she wasn't aggressive enough, or she didn't collect something that she should have collected, which always is a good argument if it's true there was something missing from the file that should have been obtained. Do me a favor, send me the ALJ denial tomorrow. I'm on vacation up in Maine. I do this one vacation even though I'm working while I'm up in Maine every year. But bottom line is send me the ALJ denial. And then send me basically, if you can get a hold of it, the DDE report. If you can't get a hold of the DDE report, actually what I would do is this: call up the hearing office where you had the hearing, have them send you the exhibit disc. They'll text it or they'll email it to you. Shoot me the exhibit disc, and then I'll take a look at it and see if this is a winnable claim, to see if you can get a remand to basically get it back and then get a decision in the favorable. The kicker is this. All right, so this is my real question. What are the silver bullets? What new medical treatment did you have after the ALJ hearing? What new imaging did you obtain? What new things were the doctors saying that made it look like and sound like and actually be that you are more disabled than you were earlier back in the day?
I have an MRI that shows on my lower back, my spine, I have 2 bulging discs, and I have spinal stenosis. I have 2 bulging discs. I have nerve root impingement at the L5 and S1. I have bone spurs on several of those discs, and then I have two discs that are shifting forward.
Okay.
And then I also, on the mental side, I have 2 hospitalizations within the past 6 months. From January till now, I have 2.
But are these new from after the ALJ decision?
Yep.
All right. So that sounds like a lot, mental and physical. All right. Send me the original claim. Let me take a look at what was in the file. And then I'll look at the options for basically doing the, remand situation, because that's what you're shooting for. You don't want to deny. You want to remand back to AC, remand back to ALJ for a decision. Shoot it over to me tomorrow. I'll take a look at it and I'll see if it's got. Now, remember, I send this off to another attorney and we both look at it to see, she looks at the options for basically circuit court stuff. We talk about ideas there, because remember, if you get another denial, then we have to look at where it's going to go from there. And then we also look at the ALJ from what we know about that ALJ and what that ALJ likes versus doesn't like for this type of claim. Remember, you're under 50, so there's no grid out, which means that you received a favorable at the DDS local level, either as a vocational allowance or a listing level approval. But I don't know, this might be listing level approval. I'd have to look at the 1.0s for your bone issues and see if that kind of falls in line. There might be something there. But, it doesn't sound like you've been spending, a lot of time inpatient at a mental facility over the past, year. So this sounds like if there's potential for listing level for the musculoskeletal, that'll be it. Or it's just a general vocational allowance where you wouldn't be able to work and do the jobs that you once did or other types of jobs in the national economy.
Yeah, and I appreciate you taking the time, and I watch a lot of your videos, and I got a lot of good stuff out of them. A lot of the stuff you said in your videos is what I did. I had a local attorney here in New Hampshire that helped me with this case. I hired her immediately, and she actually had me do a couple things that I think helped as well. At the beginning of the case, she had me do a test where how long I can sit, how long I can stand. There was like 4 different tests that I did. It took me 2 weeks to do them, and then she compiled like how long I could stand, how long I could sit, and then I had my PCP and my therapist both filled out the medical forms, and then I also have a specialist, a knee specialist, that agreed to do it too, but I didn't get a chance to do that. They already said they had enough evidence, so I'll definitely do that, and I appreciate you taking a look at it for me, because I'm trying to win this just because it was so bad that the way the whole thing went down, that one of the doctors that did one of the mental CEs, in the background, her phone was ringing, her dog was barking, her kids were leaving for school, and it was by Zoom, and supposedly she was able to evaluate me and say that there was nothing wrong. But instead of listening to what I was going through and stuff, she asked me stupid questions like who the president was and things like that. And it was just so frustrating. But I appreciate you taking the time to take the call. And I'm like I said, I watch all your videos, and you're very knowledgeable, and I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, good sir. No worries. We'll take a look at it. That's the difference between the big box firms and the local firms that do the custom work. The big box firms mass advertise, then they get, claimants get stuck in basically the plant trap. And then at some point, if they get angry or it doesn't work out, they switch over to the local firms to get it done right. In my opinion, of course, the first time. So they're doing it right the way it's supposed to be done. But all right. So good, sir. I will catch up with you at some point tomorrow. And have a wonderful, wonderful night, and keep trucking. You're doing a good job.
Thank you, Walter. I appreciate it.
Thank you, good sir. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Excellent, guys. I really want to say a quick thank you to Deb Carter, who did the $5 donation. That's super duper amazing, and I really appreciate it, because life has been crazy, crazy, crazy with this whole house stuff next door and me trying to basically get that done on a mini budget. I also have an update on that house coming out soon about the kitchen, but that's like a whole fiasco that they did a great job installing it, but now it's like the cleaning and finalizing things. I'll do a thing up, but here we go. Here's the next call real quick. And hi, this is Attorney Walter Hnot. Remember to mute the computer on your end. Use a fake name throughout this process. Have your legal question ready to roll. Would you like me to answer a specific legal question, or would you like me to run hearing questions with you? Go ahead.
Oh, Walter, this is John. I got just a real quick specific question.
Perfect.
I'm on disability now. We going through Medicare, doing a workers' comp setback agreement. They've already approved it.
Mm-hmm.
The judge hasn't signed off on it yet. My question is, when it's finalized and I get the papers back, they've already done the Hartford wording on it, the correct wording on it. When I get everything back, do I have to send a copy to Social Security, or do I call them and say, hey, this is the way it is. It's offset. The wording's offsetted. What do I need to do? Take it down there to the office, or send them a copy, or what exactly do I need to do?
Is this just for Medicare, or is this like an LTD thing?
No, it's for a Medicare setback agreement for workman's comp.
Okay, so workers' comp. Okay,
Medicare
gotcha.
Setback agreement. I've got a future medical, and that's to protect Medicare's interest. We did a Medicare setback agreement.
So,
and it's already been approved through Medicare, and we're just waiting to get the paperwork back. So when I get it in the award through Workman's Comp, so when I get the paperwork, do I need this? It's already been offsetted through the wording.
Yeah, I got you. They already took care of the financials. Yeah.
So when I get the paperwork, do I need to call them up, or do I make an appointment and take it down there, or what do I need to do?
So this is what my hard and fast rule when it comes to people asking about notification of the SSA about contractual agreements that are usually for an amount of money that might pop up on their taxes, right? Because the IRS keeps a transcript of funds that you might receive from different locations. And it's always, in my opinion, even if it's not really going to be, taxable or harmful in any way to your Social Security benefits, to submit to them that agreement. That way they have it on file. Because what happens is the IRS feeds to the SSA the transcript in a couple of documents: the certified earnings query, detailed earnings query, summary earnings query, new hire query, stuff like that. And those documents might show income on there. And if you submit to them the agreement that you had, for workers' comp / Medicare and things that might even blossom from that, they're going to be able to tag it specifically to that, so that it doesn't pop up in some weird way saying, hey, what is this income? Is this over SGA? Blah, 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 blah. That way they know ahead of time what they're looking at. So my rule of thumb is if the IRS can see it, they need to be notified about it. Now, of course, the SSA would say we need to be notified about any transaction, of funds that you do related to, bigger money coming your way. And that's true. But my rule of thumb is if the IRS can see it and you got a contract that you're signing, especially if the judge has it, it's always wise to send an extra copy to the local FO, the field office, because that will go ahead and sit in your file. And then somebody will go ahead and look at it down the road where they're doing a CDR and they're trying to basically reconcile the difference between the transcript from the IRS and the income you have that the SSA has received from those certified queries that the IRS sent them.
Okay. And I'm 62, and I received my award letter in 2019, and it said you will not have a CDR or will not have a review for 5 to 7 years. So is there a chance that I might have a CDR, or they might just, due to my age, will they not have one?
So I have people who have received letters that said they shouldn't have one, but there are certain situations that automatically trigger them. So if you complete school, like a college degree, that triggers them. If you go ahead and have earnings that are significantly over SGA repetitively, that triggers one. If you go ahead and do something fraudulent, like you say, well, I'm not doing this, and then they find out you are doing that, it triggers one. So there are a lot of different ways that CDRs can be triggered. So I'm not going to put my nickel down on whether or not you will have one, because I just don't know enough about your background, what's going on in your life to say definitively it won't,
Okay, yeah. Well, I had a major spinal fusion with rods and cages and all that, so now I'm retired firefighter, so I don't think I'm playing host monkey anymore. So
gotcha.
Anyway, I'll get off here. You answered my question, so I appreciate your show. So.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, goodbye.
Hi, this is Attorney Walter Hnot. We are live on YouTube. Remember to use a fake name throughout this process. Ask the legal question right up front. Would you like me to answer a specific legal question, or would you like me to run hearing questions? Go ahead.
I have a specific question. I was hit in a wheelchair versus vehicle accident, and we are in the process of suing the other driver's insurance.
Okay.
How I have SSI, Medicaid, and food stamps. Mm-hmm. How is it going to affect that, and how could I protect those benefits?
Okay, so All right, couple of things. So, and my brain's getting a little tired. You said you SSI, SSDI, Medicare benefits, or was it SSI, Medicaid? What was it again?
I have CP and it was from both. I think it's SI.
You think it's SSI?
Yes, it was from both.
How much do you get as a check per month?
912.
912. Are you sure it's not 914?
Okay, it might be that.
Okay, cool. So it's probably SSI. So, okay. So the thing is, SSI is not a super duper fan of big personal injury settlements or lawsuit funds that you end up with. What do I mean by that? They have this thing called the resource limit, $2,000. It sucks. They need to raise it to 10 grand at least. But the bottom line is, if you have a massive chunk of money coming in, they sometimes give you a little bit of leeway, but they ultimately require you to do what's called a spend down to be under the resource limit. So how much money do you actually see coming your way? I mean, are we talking like, $50,000, or are we talking like, $3 to $5 million?
And that's unknown at this point. It was like last month when I got hit. I'm just trying to get ready for what's going to be coming my way.
Do you have a big box attorney, or do you have a local attorney?
I think it's a big box. They have the Western region.
Okay.
They have 3 different places in the Western region.
Okay. Are they advertising all over the internet? Are they advertising with, giant billboards, stuff like that?
Possibly, yes.
All right. So those firms tend to get a lower ultimate settlement. The way they get so many clients is they advertise. Whereas the other firms, they don't really have to advertise as much because people refer them. But the point is, all right, let me ask you some basic questions here. Were you at fault in any way when the accident occurred?
Not that I know of. I was on the sidewalk where the vehicles can drive over the sidewalk, and that's where I got hit.
Okay. And you were in a wheelchair, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so you weren't working, or you were working before you got hit?
I actually am. I was recovering from a concussion before that, so I haven't had a job in over a couple of years.
Okay, so you had a pre-existing injury, a concussion. Like, what happened with the concussion? Tell me about that.
Back in December, I fell and hit my head hard. I was cleared by OT, PT, and speech that I should be good to go. And then within a few hours, I was hit by this vehicle.
Okay. So, all right, look, let's be realistic here. You want to get this in front of, if possible, a jury in any way that you can to get the sympathy vote. I mean, what type of industry and what type of level were you working at prior to the first fall?
Considering I had CP, I wasn't working. I do IT on the side, but I don't have a job.
How much were you earning per year before the fall?
I was only getting SSI the whole time.
Oh, so you were on SSI even before the fall?
Yes.
All right. So, and this is some bad news that you just gotta have. It is what it is. SSI people with personal injury claims don't end up collecting usually super big money because there was no big income, and the potential forecasted growth of that income over their career, to essentially say that they would have lost all of this money as a result of the injury. In your case, you were already on SSI disability benefits. You had a pre-existing injury, and then you got hit by this vehicle, while you were in a wheelchair, which obviously if a vehicle hits you while you're in a wheelchair, there's usually not fault in any way on your case of getting hit by a car, especially when you're in a wheelchair. It's not like you just ran in front of a vehicle. So the point is, right off the bat, some of the early questions you should ask the big box law firm that you're with is, number one, what do claims like this normally go for? Number two, what are factors that hurt my claim? Number 3, how long would the take to get to the first settlement discussion? Number 4, at what point will we know that we should go basically to trial? And then number 5, what are the chances of basically having this be a larger win claim, and what types of evidence and what types of medical treatment should you be working on to achieve that? So, to be fair, if you receive those funds, you're going to have a resource limit issue with SSI benefits. So just be aware that if it's a larger amount of money, you can always put that money into a house or a car and use that as an allowable asset for the SSI. But just keep in mind, SSI is one of those programs where it's unfortunate, but it has that resource limit, which is definitely going to hurt you with some PI money coming in.
Even if I put it all into like an able account or something like that?
You can put it into an account like that. It depends on, age. It depends on, how much you can get into it. Because remember, the able accounts, you're limited as to how much you can throw into it, per year kind of gig. And it has other limits as well. So, but bottom line is, that's why I was asking, how much money are we talking about? Because, if you have to throw $1 million into an able account, that's going to be a little tricky.
Okay, well, thanks for your time. So you're thinking I need to talk to my lawyer and figure out the amount of money I could get and that kind of stuff, and then go from there.
Yeah. So basically, what you're going to be trying to figure out is how much money would be potentially coming across the bow. Are there any limitations for you putting the funds into an able account? And the reality is, look, do you own your home?
No, I would live with my parents. After my fall, I had to move back in with my parents.
Okay, so you might want to consider purchasing your parents' house, and then everybody just kind of lives there, and then basically you put the rest of it into an able account. Because remember, there's limitations like the 100K rule, and the how much per year you're allowed to put in for the able account. So just remember, if you're talking about bigger money, you have to have a plan beyond just the able account.
Okay.
All right, perfect.
Thank you.
You got to have a wonderful night.
You too.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Hi, this is Attorney Walter Hnot. We are live on YouTube. Would you like me to go ahead and answer a specific question, or would you like me to run hearing questions with you? Go ahead.
Hello, Walter. I have a specific question for you.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, I'm on SSDI, and I haven't been able to save much money. But if I do save money, what kind of account do I save it in? Or can I save any amount of money, or will they take it back, the SSA?
All right, so here's the thing. You can put funds into special disability trusts. You can, and you're SSDI, right? You said SSDI, not
Yes.
SSI. Okay, cool. So there are special
SSDI.
trusts that you can use. But this is the thing, people always go to they always, able account is more of the SSI option, but they always go to how do I put money away? And here's the thing. Your goal is to make sure you achieve the base. The base is your house or your dwelling is paid for. So you're not paying rent every single month. You're just paying taxes at the end of the year. And the taxes are usually cheap because they give you a break because you're disabled, especially if you're a veteran. So, bottom line is step number 1, make sure you have a vehicle and make sure you have a house. Do you have a vehicle and a house?
Yes.
Cool. All right.
I have an older vehicle. I am going to be in the market to buy a new vehicle pretty soon.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Okay. So when people call up and they say, I don't have a lot, but I'd like to save it, what do I do with it? I always go towards the car and the house, because you can throw money into an able account, but it's better just to pay off the car. If you can pay off the car, then not the able account, then have the trust fund distribute small amounts of money to you to pay for the monthly fees on that car. Because look, I don't know if you've noticed, but these car interest rates, they ain't too good right now.
Oh, no. Tell me about it.
Right. So
yeah, it's very bad.
Yeah. So, bottom line is this, make sure you've got your car set up, make sure you've got your house set up. If you have your car and house set up and then you have extra money, yeah, use the trust. The trust you can use to pay off
Okay.
utilities and all that stuff. But until you get a usable car, remember, and here's the other thing, buy a car that's going to be reliable. A lot of people are like, I got some money, get out the Firebird, and I get it. I get it. I drive a Prius. So like, if I ever want to date somebody, I'm going to have to buy a cool car. But the point is, because let's call it is, women are not signing up to go for a ride in a beat up Prius. They're just like not all about that. They don't want to go to the pizza shop in a Prius, but they're not putting on their fancy dress to click their heels as they get into like that, cool hybrid car. But so bottom line is this: get a responsible car. Like literally, I'm going to sell you now a Prius. Get it. Go buy a Prius. And remember too, the batteries aren't expensive to replace anymore. You pay like $1,500 to $2,000, and you just gave the car a new life. Because those Toyota engines, they last and last. Yeah, my car has been beat to hell running all over the place with different offices, running up to New Jersey, running up to Maine. I'd even towed a boat behind it for a while. So my point is this.
My gosh.
Oh yeah, I was one of those people. My point, and that kind of tells you like how much disability attorneys make. But the point is this: it's so incredibly important to kind of understand that having a vehicle, especially as you continue to get older and older, that's almost more important than being able to have a house, because when you have a reliable vehicle, as more and more ailments become problematic, you're going to be going to more and more medical treatment, options. And that it's just so, yeah. So, but again, the Priuses, they're so cheap. The Toyota engines are incredible. The transmissions are just great. If you don't abuse it like I did, it should last forever. And if you do abuse it, look, there's a lot of parts in it that you can replace. Some of them, there's a problem where basically you have to take it to Toyota for them to redo the chip on it and stuff like that. But, a lot of the stuff, you can pull an engine, you can pull a transmission, you can pull the battery, a lot of that stuff, you're good to go. So I recommend buying a car that's going to be cheap to drive, Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay. One last question. How do I set up a trust? I mean, I'm naive in that sense. I don't even know how to set up a trust.
So the first thing I always recommend, because like setting up a trust is not something I can cover in like 5 to 7 minutes, because we're talking about like what are the pitfalls of how to begin the process. First thing you do is you reach out to a couple of trust attorneys and ask them what is their take, what is their stance on setting up disabled trusts. And if they know basically the rules and regulations and the required language that has to be in it, then that's a good sign. Find out what the price is, find out how you're going to put the funds into it. But remember that the point of the trust, a lot of people, when it comes to trust, it's because they're receiving some chunk of money in some manner or form. There's some big asset or lots of assets coming their way. If you're just looking for something where the funds are dribbling in and you're looking for, a way to put them into something, that may not be a trust situation. That might be something else.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I get you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for all your help you do. And keep on going with the renovation. We like those videos.
Will do. I have the kitchen one coming out soon. It has been horrendous to edit the video, but it'll be coming out shortly. So I think next couple of days you'll probably see it. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Walter, so much.
Thank you, madam. Have a wonderful night. Thank you.
Okay, you too.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Hi, this is Attorney Walter Hnot, Disability Resolution PA. We are doing the last phone call of the night. Remember to use a fake name throughout this process. Remember to mute the computer on your end. Would you like me to answer a specific question, or would you like me to run hearing questions with you? Go ahead.
Hi. I had a couple of specific questions. I'm going to try to cram it all into 5 to 7 minutes. I really thank you for all the wonderful things you do. This isn't why I was calling, but the last caller, she was on SSDI, and I know you said to put it into an investment account, but am I correct that since she's on, if a person's on SSDI, couldn't they just, put it in as their regular bank account and not worry about it?
Well, yeah, they don't have a resource limit issue. I mean, they could just put it into a regular savings or checking account and just let it sit there, or they could set it into some sort of financial account that does something, whether it's this account or that account or whatever,
Okay.
She could invest it into other things. She could invest it into bonds. She could invest it into stocks, whatever. But you remember, at the end of the day, she's got the SGA limitation, but she has no resource limit limitation. So the main focus for her is, if she's saving or trying to save, a trust fund is not going to be her main thing that she should use. The main thing is what account is going to take that money and grow it in the best possible way that doesn't end up injuring her SGA limitation. Yeah.
Got it. And then another thing that you mentioned earlier tonight, you mentioned something called a new hire query. I'm not sure what that is, but let's say that, like, you get a job and you never actually start the job because you decide that it's not the right fit. So you have no earnings from the job because you never start the job. Would that show up on this thing called a new hire query? And if so, could that pose a problem if the SSA sees that your name is coming up on, occasional new jobs that, you maybe get, but you never actually start working, therefore have no income from?
It's a good question. Basically, here's the deal. When they set you up for payroll, sometimes those payroll reports get submitted and your name's on it. And then you'll end up inside the IRS system with that payroll. Now, it won't show any earnings, but it might show up that you have new hirings at that location. And then somebody, the SSA, might be like, hey, what's this job? Why is there no earnings? What's going on here? Yada, yada. So if a job doesn't work out, it's always good to say, send in somebody, the SSA, to say, hey, I started this job, couldn't do it, ended this job on this date, no longer working there. Now, there are some times when, if you don't make any money, they don't set you up on the payroll, and then it doesn't get submitted. But yes, sometimes I've seen on the new hire query, which kind of looks at jobs, past 6 months, maybe past year, maybe past year and a half. I've even seen them a little bit farther back than that, where they'll have special notes on them. But usually they look at the quarters, they look at like the year we're currently in, and then a couple of quarters of the past year as well. And what they'll do is they'll say, okay, what did you earn per quarter at that particular job that you were working at? So the bottom line is, you might show up if you didn't have any earnings there, and it will show that you didn't have any earnings there. But that is a red flag to say, hey, wait a minute, this guy's on payroll, but he's not receiving payment.
Yeah, I thought of that because I know that I had a job offer at one point, but then they rescinded the job offer, and so I never worked there. And but it never even occurred to me to worry about that until I heard you mention new hire query, and then I thought, could that be a problem? Is that something I should do nothing about at this point?
Oh, sorry. One more time. My brain, it's late. My brain turned off. One more time, good sir. Yeah.
I had a job offer once, and the job offer got rescinded, so I was never on payroll, and I never thought to report that to SSA because, I never reported to work. So if my name did go on the new hire query, is that something that I would have already been notified about by SSA? Do I need to start worrying about that now or no?
I mean, look, here's the thing. When you have a potential name pop up, you can go into the payroll, and if somebody's looking for something, if there's a problem where, like, you did something and they're looking at multiple situations where it looks like you keep working under the table and there's potential fraud and a CDI unit request from the IRS, a quick sheet, bottom line is, then it's something to worry about. But if you have look, all right, so let me ask you this question. Have you gone to work for a company, like 10 of them, and you showed up, didn't work a day, they put you on payroll, but you never did anything, and now that got reported? Or is this like a one here, one there thing over the past couple of years?
Very occasional.
Well, very occasional means a lot of things to a lot of people. Like, give me, how many in a year,
Oh, I'm only thinking about 2 over the last several years.
Ah, man, don't worry about it. That's unlikely to pull. Look, when you have somebody. All right, let me give you 2 examples. One person goes ahead, signs up, and then all of a sudden, that person's able to buy a newer car, but they're only receiving, SSI amount of money, and basically, there's no payroll transactions thereafter, but their name stayed on payroll when they processed their yearly transactions and sent in their ADP notes and stubs to the IRS, and your name was on there, but there was no payments, and you just stayed on there. You were never removed from it. That looks sketchy. That looks a little, hey, what's this? Then you got the other guy who has, past 3 years, the person always gets put on payroll, but then they never make any income. And it's like 10 different companies that they did that at. That also looks sketchy. But, somebody who's disabled, they start a job and they never actually do the job. And there's only 2 of them over the past couple of years. People do that all the time. They're trying to try out work. They're trying to see if they can get, a little bit of money going on. So I wouldn't worry about that.
All right. And then, speaking of jobs, I know in some videos you've mentioned about, how sometimes they look at jobs in the last 15 years. Let's say you try a job and you get fired after a month. It doesn't work. Does that cause a problem during a future CDR when they're looking at the jobs you've done in the last 15 years and they say, oh, well, you did a job for a month, 5 years ago. Can you go back and do that? Or would that not count if it was only a month long?
They're supposed to consider SGA level work at SVP level considerations, which means that if the job is a super simple one and only takes a month to learn how to do it, and you're earning SGA over a month, then that's something they're supposed to take a look at. If it's a job that takes, more than 2 years to be able to learn, and all of a sudden, you're getting pretty good, well above SGA and you're rocking it, and you're doing that for like 3 or 4 months, and now you're going on month 5 and 6, then they're going to look at it. But if you worked for a place for a couple of weeks, 3 years ago, that's not what they're looking for. They're fishing for somebody who can actually work.
And then speaking of CDRs, I know you've talked in the past about how, the different states have different approval rates. And does it make any sense to move to a state that has a higher CDR approval rate compared to other states if you had no other reason to, if there was nothing else holding you back in any one state? Like, let's suppose you live in a state that has a very low approval rate and there's really nothing holding you there. Do you think it would make sense to relocate to a state that has a higher such rate in order to cause one to have less anxiety about future CDRs?
So my brain goes to where the data collection comes from for approval rates. So I'm thinking disabilityjudges.net with, what the ALJ approval rates are, and looking at essentially the current judges that are operating in that state and how much, they're approving, how much they're not approving. My first thought is you don't know who's going to be adjudicating your claim in the state when they get it. You don't know which DDS reps are going to get it. The only thing you're going to really need to know about is who is the DDS manager. Central Florida has a DDS manager that loves to deny claims. Okay. But there are other DDS managers in different areas that will pass claims through. You go over to Tampa, St. Pete area, that DDS manager over there will probably pass a claim through that the DDS manager in Central Florida will not. You're never going to know that information because they don't publish that stuff. So you're going to have to kind of rely on a disability attorney to tell you what's going on in that specific area. So you're kind of stuck with what the ALJ approval or denial ratings actually are, the percentages. And as a result of that, would I move to a different state because one state has, slightly higher percentage? I mean, look, if I'm in like a, 30% passage rate state and I want to move to a state that's around 44, 45, yeah, that makes sense. You got a much better shot at keeping your benefits. Okay. Especially if you're moving from a state that's not, very, that's maybe more expensive, doesn't offer you a lot, maybe it's something where there's a high inflation rate issue because, all the states have different rates of inflation. One of the weird things that a lot of people don't realize is that inflation is not the same across the board in every state. You go to California, you go to Honolulu, inflation is literally out of control. Their inflation rate is extreme. And the cost of living adjustment that you guys receive at the end of the day is based off of an average of all of the states combined. So, at the end of the day, you got to keep in mind, like, there are states that are more shitty when it comes to how costly it is to buy food than others. California, the blue chip states are very expensive to live in. They have incredible medical, though. So, it's, for disabled people, you got to consider, do I need top of line medical treatment? Colorado has a lot of the top of the line medical doctors because, skiing out there, and a lot of them love doing that and yada, yada. Other places, though, are becoming very expensive on the red side. Texas, Florida, very expensive. A lot of amazing top-notch doctors moving there as well and setting up shop. But you got to keep in mind, inflation, look, if it's got beautiful beaches and luxury areas, inflation is going to be really bad and it's going to get worse. If it's a blue chip state, inflation is going to be bad. It's going to be worse. But if you're talking about like Kentucky, if you're talking about Mississippi, that's going to be the cheapest state to live in, which is where you're going to see a lot of people moving to. And you're going to have a dichotomy of two types of disabled individuals when it comes to downsizing or moving to a different state. Those who move in the country to a good old boy cheap state, and those who move out of the country to a country that is favorable to the American dollar that they can receive, which obviously SSI can't do that, but SSDI people will. So, remember, your best shot of retaining benefits, might be in a state that has good medical treatment. But ultimately it comes down to a doctor that's going to be supportive towards you. You go out of the country, it's tougher for them to go ahead and say, whether or not you've improved or not improved, because, when you go see the medical doctor over there, all right, here's the thing. When you go out of the country, okay, which is what a lot of people do, which is where this whole thing is evolving. When you go out of the country, sometimes you go to places where the medical treatment is different. It's not Western medicine. Like, if you go over to like Vietnam, if you go over to like Taiwan, if you go over to those types of places, South Korea, medical treatment is similar in some of those areas, but then also very different in the types of medicines that they use. Because remember, some medicines they can get in those parts of the, in the world, then other medications they can't get them. So the SSA then has a trickier time deciphering essentially the medical notes from those groups, because their medical notes are not set up like the US system when it comes to Western medicine, to make little check marks as to how severe you are. And remember, if you're getting a CDR, you're going through the 8-step sequential process, and they're looking to see, number one, are your impairments getting better? Are they staying the same, or are they getting worse? If they're staying the same, you're disabled. If they're getting worse, you're staying disabled. If they're getting better, then they go to step 2. Are there other impairments that you currently have that are bad enough that will limit you to the point where you couldn't work, that you're now disabled through these other impairments? And so, you go through that whole thing. Let's say if you don't have other impairments, or they're not that severe, then you're not disabled. Then they begin that process. If you have other impairments that are severe, you become disabled. So the point is, you've got to then weigh and balance where you think you can get the best medical evidence in the future, as opposed to and be able to afford it, with your insurance and living and all that stuff, versus essentially what is the CDR rate. Always choose the medical doctors that will be most supportive to your claim over moving because a CDR says, this state has this percentage or that percentage. Also, remember, a state can flip when you move. Look at the new numbers that are coming out of Alaska. Alaska used to be the dead zone. You getting found disabled in Alaska meant you were like in a coma and that was it. It was ridiculous. But now it's changing. Now it's a totally different area. So, the bottom line is consider all those factors. But if you're going to move because there's a doctor that will be supportive to you and your impairments, and write some really strong notes. Make sure there's specialists that you can see that will support what your doctor is saying. Don't move just because of a percentage online.
Interesting. So if I understand you correctly, if you know that there's a good doctor in a particular state that has a terrible CDR approval rate, it's better to live there than in a state that has an excellent CDR approval rate, but that perhaps you don't have as supportive of a doctor.
It's getting harder and harder to find doctors that are supportive because the legal industry has punched them in the nose too many times. So now they're afraid to write down how bad somebody actually is. And they're constantly writing down how their medical treatment is improving the person because, let's call it like it is, insurance companies aren't going to want to pay them unless magic is happening.
Are there, other than Tampa, are there any other specific places that are good though for CDR rates?
Yeah, but I shouldn't have even said that, to be honest with you, because I shouldn't have given that information out. That's more of a thing where I should have just stuck with the ALJ percentage approvals. So I'm going to walk away from that information a little bit because I shouldn't have given you that, to be honest with you.
Oh, all right. Well,
I mean, it's live. It is what it is. But the thing is, like, I'm not supposed to pass judgment when they don't previously release statistics relating to approval or denial rates. So what I stated was true. It is accurate, but I just have to be careful with that stuff because I then have to back it up. And then I'd have to go ahead and prove through all the claimants that I have in one area versus another with their impairments versus somebody with similar impairments at a different area. That's a mosh pit. That's a mosh pit of trying to prove that it's a truthful statement. I know it's accurate because I see it day in and day out, but then having to prove it based on statistics of those claimants that I have that have equivalent impairments in a different area, it's a mosh pit,
Is Disability Judges the best source to get that info from?
I
It's not
mean,
going to give.
yeah, I mean, it's they have nice graphics. There's other websites that have the exact same information. It's nice graphics. They update it. Yeah, I like it, but I mean, you know, there are other ones out there. Yeah.
I saw a website and it showed you the hearing approval rates for initial filings, or the initial filing rates, the initial filing approvals, you know, if you get approved before hearing, and then the hearing approval rates if there was a hearing, but it didn't show CDR. So I was trying to extrapolate from that, you know, the CDR rates. So if you're trying to figure out CDR rates, should you focus more on a correlation between the initial filing approval rates or the hearing level approval rates in each state?
Well, remember the statistics that you found may have included CDRs as part of those adjudications. Like, did it specify that it excluded CDRs?
No, I
Okay.
just assumed it excluded it.
Yeah. So bottom line is it probably included CDRs and the 8-step sequential process in combination with the 3-step kid and the 5-step adult, you know, sequential process adjudication. So this is the thing. You have to use it and take it as a whole situation. You know, and remember too, you don't know who's going to be adjudicating you. You might go into a high percent passage rate state and then get the real stinker of a judge that has an extremely low passage rate. And then you're in a situation where it is what it is. You know, you got stuck with that one. And that's the one that you're going through. But yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Am I correct though that you would only encounter a judge and be in that situation if you essentially quote unquote fail a CDR and now you're appealing it?
Well, so
Like
yeah, you get 1 or 2 denials. Yeah. So some states don't have recon. So you get your first denial, then you get your second denial if the state has recon at DDS or DAS if you're in Georgia. You know, Georgia's special in a lot of ways, when it comes to DAS. But the point is, yeah, you go ahead and bottom line is you got rejected with the first one, rejected with the second one, then you go to the ALJ. Now, it would be great to have high approval rates at the initial filing level, but remember, those people, those DDS reps, a lot of them are just out of college, first jobbers, or they're people being borrowed from other parts of the agency. They're usually pretty high up, so they're given good decision and analysis, or they're the people who are still working there. There's a lot of people that are being hired that's their first job, and they're losing about 1,000 employees every single month at the SSA. So as quickly as they hire them on, a lot of these people are quitting as well. So the bottom line is you just don't know what you're going to get when you go in front of that DDS initial filing adjudication. You could be getting a kid first time out of college with his first job. You could be getting somebody that's been working there for 6 months doing it. You could be getting somebody who came from appeals counsel and their you know, analytical skills are extremely high. They're very quick at reading through documents, and they're going to be able to figure out the claim faster than some of the ALJs are.
But if you file the long form and it gets approved, then I guess you would never encounter, it would never go before a judge, correct? DDS
Correct.
would approve it with that. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's good. And if you wanted to move to a foreign country, like you said, what's the solution to the fact that Medicare doesn't work and then you wouldn't have health insurance to pay for the doctors?
So that is a video that I'm going to be doing pretty much, I think about 2 weeks from now. I started to work on a script for that. And the question, to put it another way, is can you still get medical treatment with insurance in foreign countries when you cannot access traditional Medicare, which they give you, you know, for a monthly fee traditionally on these other Social Security programs? Yeah. So here's the deal. It depends on which country you move to. But what you also have to consider is that the amount that you spend potentially on Medicare, depending on what Social Security program you're utilizing, might actually be so much more than what you would pay to get medical treatment in this other country that, you know, it makes more sense to go ahead and utilize this other country's medical system. Another thing you have to keep in mind that is unfortunate about America is that America is a big fan of letting these big pharma companies do what they want to do. And as a result, a lot of medications that are considered to be wild cards, if you will, you know, especially those related to stem cell research, are not being allowed in America. So a lot of people go to foreign countries because they can get these other types of treatments and basically get better. Now, you might be saying, well, shoot, if you get better, you're not going to get disability benefits anymore. And there is some truth to that. That is correct. But if they get better, they go back to work, they live their life. So the point is, you have that. Another thing is a lot of these people that have disability benefits, they may not need medical imaging. They may not need medical surgery. They may need, medication for the mind to upkeep them and just repetitive psychological analysis. So, they go to another country where a psychiatrist or a psychologist is much, 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 much cheaper. It might actually be a deal for them to be outside of the country.
Any specific countries in
That's
Europe,
the video.
America,
You're trying to snooker the video. Let me come out with the video on that. There are specific countries, but I studied veterans basically that moved out of the country because they were the best analysis tool to figure out exactly where they were going, why they were going, what were the benefits that they were doing. But bottom line is this: there are certain countries that offer you some of the best options, and a lot of them, a lot of people don't think about, because they just, we don't conceptually as Americans realize where some countries are at. Like when you look at Egypt, you think like it's all sand castles. It's not. It's this massive metropolis. When you look at Africa and some of their cities, we think there's like camels and like, these beaten, broken up, brick oriented, of the sand building. It's not. There's metropolises there. They have HOAs with bigger homes there than they have in some of the states that we have here. So, the point being with all of this is that first thing you have to get over is, what does the country actually offer in the modern era? Because a lot of people, they see Hollywood movies and they get this idea that it's just a sand dune someplace, or that it's just a tropical island and somebody's there with basically like, a plant, and they're squishing some juice out of it and applying it to your forehead. So, you have to get past that, dynamic, and then get to the point of, okay, what do they actually have there? And one of the things that's really scary, that's really mind blowing, is that, there are certain types of, all right, look, I'll say one thing. A place that isn't necessarily good to move to, but is a decade ahead, at least in medical treatment, would be specifically Israel. It's far too costly for most people on disability benefits. But if you want magical pet the unicorn treatment that is a decade ahead of where we're at in this country, you go to Israel. So I'll tell you that. And I've been studying specifically how they work, but man, they're pay to play over there for the most part when it comes to some of the bigger things of people coming over that aren't citizens. But the pay to play option exists. However, some of the pay to play options have been, worked on and made better, and you can even get the treatment in Mexico. But again, mentally, you have to get over the design of going to Mexico and you're imagining this little broken concrete and, stone brick building. That's the hospital with the blinking, logo on the outside,
Yeah. And speaking of going back to work, let's say you do go back to work and then 4 years later you get fired, you go through a CDR during the EXR provision. Would you imagine that would be a tougher CDR to get through compared to if you never worked at all during the same 4-year period?
Are we talking about a ticket to work gig, or are we talking about you just went back to work?
If you went back to work and then you essentially lost the job, you couldn't handle it anymore, and therefore I guess you're no longer in the ticket to work program at that point.
Well, I mean, what you're really asking me is, how old can I be when they'll allow me to still do the ticket to work program? And then at what point can I fail and then switch over to retirement? That's where that always leads. But the point is this: they usually seek for you to find some other employment, when that job won't work out. Because the whole point is it's a 5-year contract to get you off of benefits where you get to work, keep the money, and yada, yada. But we're assuming you've already blown through your 9-month trial work period, and you've already blown through your 36-month eligibility period and keeping it under SGA for those months. And you wanted to go straight into ticket to work to earn as much as possible. Then yeah, you can fail the ticket to work program. And there are instances where it's acceptable to fail the ticket to work program. But there's a lot of provisions and reporting and you checking in with them where they watch to see what's going on. But in answering it, yes, you can fail the ticket to work program and not end up financially destroyed as a result of it.
Would it be more risky to try the ticket to work program at, say, age 50 compared to age 60?
Well, first off, they have to allow you into the ticket to work program, especially at age 60, because they're going to be, they know what the game is too. All right. the thing is this: the Ticket to Work program is a means to an end to use a carrot to get you off of disability benefits and get you back to working. So if you're like, hey, I think I can work, you know, all right, what this comes down to is how much are you going to need that Medicare insurance? If you can get a job that pays a good amount, you've got the education, you've got the experience, and that company is going to cover your health insurance, then why the hell would you stay on disability benefits when you could get so much more?
What if you're afraid about future layoffs? Like, I heard that one of the people that are running for president, they have a plan to lay off 75% of the federal employee workforce. They want to do massive reduction in forces. They want to do things like that. So what do you think is a bigger risk, like getting a job and then being a victim of a layoff and not being able to find a comparable job versus the risk of dealing with a more aggressive CDRs?
God, that's a good question. And I've been on the phone for way too long because these are all really good questions. To answer that, as you know, we saw during COVID, a lot of people without a college education getting a $125,000 job. And then immediately after the COVID situation, they fired those people and hired people that had a college education for the same amount of money. So we are going to go up and down. Yes, major firms are mass firing people. They're cutting the fat. They're cutting the fat because the economy we're in is just, it's being mismanaged at the highest level. I'm not going to say anything more about him, but bottom line is it's being mismanaged at the highest level. And as a result of that, companies are saying we got to tighten the belt. Now, will the belts get loose again? A little bit more fat around the corset area? Sure. They'll do that, but that's not going to happen during this year. That's not going to happen during next year. And if there's a 4 more year situation to him, then they're going to continue to reserve funds and not release as much to their most expensive asset, which is, of course, their workforce. So if you think that there's going to be another 4 more years of the current White House administration, then just realize that there's, not going to be a lot of jobs available. If you think that, basically there will be a changeover to a more, capitalism oriented market government, then yeah, there's going to be a lot more jobs opening because they're going to be making a lot more money and doing a lot more with, breaking new ground, if you will. So I would be very careful with the type of job you get, because ultimately, look at everything, anything. And I mean, you could use Disney as an example, but they got into a pissing battle with Florida. But look at every company that you have out there. At the end of the day, they're saying to themselves, how much do I need to reserve in payroll to be able to pay all these people that work for us? And then when they turn around and say, we need a reduction of at least 10% of our workforce, they're saying 10% of what we pay in payroll has to be cut for us to survive, to get to the next level of this tragic economy situation that we're going through post-COVID. So just be aware, you really want to be answering that question at the very, very end, aka November of 2024.
Well, if you're worried about CDRs, I mean, if you wanted to even think about getting a part-time job, do you feel there's risk of, say, only making $500 a month, that it could cause CDR problems because it could raise the question of, well, couldn't you earn $1,000 instead of $500?
No,
do you think it would be better to?
They usually keep it. Look, if you're earning under $1,100 against the $1,470, it usually isn't ringing a lot of bells from what I've seen. I mean, anything can cause a CDR to kick up. There's so many options there, but remember, they even have artificial intelligence scanning these medical documents to see if there's any improvement when they purchase the medical facilities that you've been to. So there's a lot of things that can cause that. But the bottom line that I would say with this whole situation is that if you are really worried about this CDR, the best protection you can have is a Ticket to Work program. But if you are worried about retaining and keeping that job, over whatever period of time, then you have to pick a job that is not the maximum that you can potentially earn in a risky market, but rather a little bit less, that's safer, where they're always going to need you, whether we have another 4 years or not, of this type of guy or that type of guy,
And that's not always easy to figure out, which type of job to, be more protected.
Oh yeah, no, I know. You're not asking me easy questions. It's like, how do I strategically, yeah. So I hear you, but it is 10:28. I gotta wake up early tomorrow because I'm doing the next leg of my trip in Maine, where I leave this area and basically go to the area I really, really love to go to. But I will say this, good sir, you have a wonderful, wonderful night, and I will catch you a bit later.
Yeah, sorry for all the questions. I apologize.
No worries. Excellent. Well, have a wonderful night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So those were really good questions. Those were questions about the gray room, which, and remember, I kept answering with a side question of this is usually where this whole thing goes with that. And that's because they're not the first time I've been asked questions like that, but that was a lot of questions lined up. We are, and I see the phone is ringing and I totally get it. And I hear it. I just, you got to remember it is 10:28. I have to do a little bit more work here and there on a few little things. I still got to edit that one video for the kitchen, which, just little things I have to cut and then paste and get the music right and stuff like that. But I will catch you guys a little bit later. Thank you so much for hanging out. I hope these videos help you. If you could, please remember to like, please remember to subscribe. But if you subscribe, click subscribe to all, because otherwise the way it works now with YouTube is that, if my video will pop up for one day and then other people's videos that paid, because it's pay to play now, they switched the system to advertise, will pop up above mine after a day. If I get 1,000 likes within that day, then basically it'll stay up for another day and yada, yada, yada. But YouTube really changed it to not be about the best quality of content, but rather about who's going to pay the most to take that spot from those videos of people who create content. So I'll catch you guys a little bit later. You have an absolutely wonderful night, and we will go from there. Enjoy. And to all those people who donated, I really, really appreciate it. A special thank you to Benny Hill for donating, and an additional thank you to Deb Carter for donating. Guys, I really appreciate it, because my attempt to become financially stable, because I don't make enough with this law firm thing. It's just like people are like, you're an attorney, you should make at least $150,000 a year. I make half of that. So yeah, I literally, if I went and drove a UPS truck, I would make significantly more than I'm currently making. So, which isn't good, because my student loans are horrendous, because I have a doctorate and a master's and all that stuff to be able to do this job. So, but anyways, I will catch you guys a little bit later. You have an absolutely wonderful night, and we'll go from there. And I will catch you later. And thank you for the moderator for the handsome comment. Very cool, very lovely. I will catch you guys later, and have a wonderful night. And keep an eye out for that kitchen video. It's so much work to edit it, but it'll be awesome. Thanks so much. Bye-bye, guys. Bye-bye.